All right, Andy, let's get into it. WWE Backlash this weekend, the first PLE in which Cody Rhodes is the undisputed WWE champion. It feels good saying that, but he will take on a formidable opponent, a former WWE champion, AJ Styles. They will go head-to-head in the main event. Andy, lots of people, man, I don't know. We talked about this build last week and how we wanted it to get personal, and then SmackDown happened in the contract signing, and we know normally how contract signings begin and end, and this one did not, man. What are your thoughts on how this is going?
Yeah, it's really weird. I feel like the contract signing didn't really do anything for this match. I just kind of feel like it was there to make it official, but nothing crazy really happened. I'm interested to see what happens this Friday, to see if anything else kind of takes place or happens to set up something heading into actual Backlash itself. But yeah, I was a little disappointed with the segment itself. I was expecting a little bit more from it, and really nothing kind of came out of it.
Here's what I think. I think we're going to play nice. Even this Friday, coming up Backlash in France, I think we're going to play nice. I think Cody's going to beat AJ, and then AJ's going to snap, because I think we'll get AJ after that. Hey, I tried to be a nice guy. I tried to be respectful, and it's just not working for me. And boom, and there's where he hits Cody where it hurts, and there's where he takes his cheap shots. Because if I'm not mistaken, Andy, Backlash is this coming Saturday, May the 4th, and then I think Memorial Day weekend is Saudi show, King and Queen of the Ring tournament, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's like 3 weeks away. So they could easily run this thing back at the Saudi show without much of a build. And who doesn't want to see Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles more than once, right?
Right. Yeah, I fully expect this one to not be a one-off. I think this, kind of like you said, they're not really doing much right now. Just they're kind of getting to Backlash, and then after Backlash, probably turn AJ fully heel, and going after Cody Rhodes, and then they'll tell their story for the next couple of weeks heading into that Saudi show, which is turning out to look like a pretty decent card with King and Queen of the Ring, and this possibly as a championship match, and some other ones as well. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how things kind of play out post Backlash this weekend. Yeah,
Backlash typically is the pay-per-view that feeds out of WrestleMania. That's what it was originally set up and designed to be, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit when we play Backlash Trivia. But before we get there, again, got lots to preview here. So we're not really seeing a lot of WrestleMania fallout into Backlash. We're seeing the women's tag team titles on the line that came from a Mania match. We'll get to that in just a minute. But, man, I hate to already bring this up, and I know we don't want to talk about it on this podcast. I'm going to bring it up anyway. Lots of people online are already sick of Cody's title reign. He cuts the same promos every week. It's not Roman. The ratings are down. Blah, 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 blah. We're not getting as many views on YouTube. Blah, 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 blah. And here we are we know that Cody and AJ can put all of that to bed once the bell rings. But, man, it just seems like, again, I think we're headed a good direction post-Backlash, but getting to Backlash, man, WWE is just feeding right into those internet wrestling community rumors and criticisms and all that. Like, I'm not asking you to criticize Cody's championship reign already, because it's totally unfair, but what do you think is their mindset of just kind of slow burning it at this point?
Yeah, I think they honestly were just trying to get to Backlash. Like, they're trying to get through this draft. They're trying to get to Backlash. Post-Backlash, I think, is where we're really going to sink a lot into Cody's promos and him as champion and everything like that. And I hate to break it to everybody else, but even if Roman won at WrestleMania, he wasn't sticking around for post-WrestleMania.
Right.
The ratings were going down no matter what. YouTube videos were going down. That's just what happens after WrestleMania. is the peak happened at WrestleMania,
Yep.
and then viewership and ratings go down for a little bit. So that doesn't bother me, honestly. My thing is crowd, like live audience. What's their reception to Cody?
Yes.
And he is still getting the biggest pops of the night. So
Yes.
I have no concerns. I have no problem. I'm not concerned at all. He's the company guy. Let him go out there, cut these company promos for 3 weeks until we get his opponent for Backlash, head into Backlash, and then we can really start to flesh out this character a lot more as champion.
Yep.
Because we're just getting started and people are fickle, and I do not take what the internet wrestling community says as gospel. It's what I hear from the live crowds. And if the live crowds start telling me that they're bored of Cody, then that's a completely different topic that we can cover if we ever get to that point. But I think we're several months from that actually happening, if happening at all, because I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you fear who they'll put up against Cody. You fear that he'll get the Seth Rollins treatment. It seems like every time he's world champion, as we talk about all the time, you put him up against people that people like, and it's going to split the crowd. And we don't think that's going to happen with Cody just because of how popular that he is. And then again, putting him up against a heel AJ Styles. Again, most people love AJ, but solidifying him as this heel character, as you mentioned earlier. All right.
Yep.
We've talked about it. Let's pick it. Does Cody Rhodes Championship reign only last 1 month? Does Cody win this one? What are we looking at here?
Worst story of all time if he loses. Just to be completely honest with you. I've never been more confident in a lock in my life that Cody Rhodes is winning. I'm not even saying winning. Cody is walking out WWE champion still.
Yes.
He may lose. He may get disqualified, count out, whatever the case is. He's walking out still WWE champion. So that's the biggest lock of the show. Probably the biggest lock of the year so far is that. You
feel more confident in that lock than you did Cody winning at WrestleMania?
Oh, I had full confidence in that one. I was not scared one bit ever.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cody Rhodes walks away with the championship in this one. No matter what the outcome is, or no matter what Mike Rome or Samantha Urban says at the end of the night, Cody Rhodes is going to be still champion by the end of this. But let's talk about the other world championship match. That is the first title. We just mentioned the first title defense of Cody Rhodes. Now it's the first title defense of Damian Priest of the Judgment Day after cashing in his Money in the Bank contract at WrestleMania, beating Drew McIntyre. Now he defends against his first challenger, arguably the biggest babyface. I don't know if there is an argument anymore. On Monday Night Raw, Jey Uso getting his first crack at the World Heavyweight Championship. Man, lots of different directions this could go. What do you like about this one?
The fact that this could honestly go either way. Like, I know Damian Priest just won, but I think there might be a scenario where Jey Uso could walk out winner. I think there's a chance he could walk out as World Heavyweight Champion. I've personally feel like with King of the Ring and Gunther being the first one to name himself in that tournament, I think whoever wins this one is who is going to lose to Gunther in that title. And I've been saying that for a minute. And I think Jey Gunther would be very interesting if we flip the roles from the IC match a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. I also think it'd be really interesting as Jey is just world champion and Roman not. I think that would be a very interesting dynamic as well. But also, I don't necessarily want to see Damian Priest lose right away either.
Right.
He's kind of been stuck in the same paradox that Cody's stuck in of just kind of trying to get to the draft and get this done and then kind of flesh out his title run from there. So I just feel like we're kind of in that weird post-WrestleMania lull that always happens of, not really knowing what's coming up next and kind of having to do the same thing every week rather than, building to something in the future because we've got the draft in between and Backlash and everything else. So
sure.
Maybe they could spread it out a little bit more. Maybe they could fix it a little bit better, but I think we're kind of stuck in that path right now.
I think it's just really interesting because you know, a lot of times you and I consider ourselves smart fans, let's be honest. And a lot of times we can predict what's going to happen. Well, right now we're sitting here saying, I don't know what's actually going to come next. I don't know what direction they could go in a lot of different directions. I'm like you, man. I could easily see Jey Uso winning this match and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. I could also see Jacob Fatu debuting during this match and costing Jey Uso the World Heavyweight Championship, thus furthering Jey and the Bloodline story and bringing Jey and Jimmy closer together. We talked about that last week. Could also see Judgment Day coming out, and they could help Priest, or Finn could get jealous and turn on Priest. There's lots of different directions they could go. One thing that I will agree with you, though, is Gunther, it's shaping up to be Gunther's championship no matter how we get there. I think I would rather have Damian Priest be the one to drop the title to Gunther. I don't know what route they're going to go with Gunther as far as babyface heel, especially with Kaiser turning on Vinci last week. Will they add another member? Don't know. I can't see them being a group and being baby faces. I think Gunther needs to be that on his own if that happens. But at the same time, man, if Jey Uso wins this title, man, I certainly don't want to see him drop it to Gunther right away, you know, a month later. Because Jey Uso, like I said, the hottest babyface on Monday Night Raw, you want that to cook for a while. And if he's the champ, you want him running with that for a bit. You talk about headlining TVs and house shows, and the list goes on. So, lots of directions they could go. What are your thoughts on Jacob Fatu? I know that we're going to talk about him here in just a minute with the Bloodline and Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Which one is more likely you think we see him?
I don't know. It's hard to kind of pinpoint what he is going, when he's going to show up. I think it's inevitable at this point that he's just going to show up at some point.
Yes.
I honestly think at Backlash, costing Jey would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or coming out in the tag match, which will probably happen before the World Championship match, and then all three of them going after Jey.
Oh, that could be cool.
Kind of beating him down a little bit more. And I think it's been confirmed that Jimmy is injured right now, and I don't know exactly how long he's supposed to be out for.
Correct.
So that kind of throws a wrench a little bit into things. But I honestly, I think
also could be kayfabe.
Could be. It could be. And the injury could be not as severe as
Sure.
stated. But I think it's very interesting. Jay's on Raw. The entire Bloodline's on SmackDown. So that's kind of separating them enough until we kind of need them to get back together. But I really think that's a way they could go, is have him debut during the tag match and then go after Jey in the World Championship match later in the night to set up something down the line. Maybe it's a good way to get Jey off TV, because we know he's probably not going to Saudi Arabia because of. Well, no, they were allowed to go. They were allowed to go last time.
Yeah, they were there for.
That's where the tag match was, or that's where Jimmy turned and then got mad at Jey.
Yes,
for turn. It was
that's right.
That's where it kind of fell apart a little bit. But
true.
I don't think. I think there's a chance Jey could walk out as champion. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either. I'm with you right there. As much as we would probably like to see it, Jey Uso probably not getting his crack at the world title at this point. But you know what? That's okay. In due time. We mentioned it. Let's talk about the Bloodline. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga taking on Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Tag match that was announced last week by Teddy Long Playa. Always got to announce the tag matches. I'm interested that they went back to Kevin Owens and Randy Orton as a team here. Maybe they just didn't have somebody else. I preached long before WrestleMania that they needed to put Kevin and Sammy back together, and it would have brought this thing full circle. Would have built to that War Games match we're talking about, but I guess, they didn't listen to my booking. What are your thoughts here on putting these two guys back together?
I think storyline-wise, it makes sense because, outside of Cody, probably those, like Randy and KO, are the two guys that have dealt with the Bloodline the most over the last 2-3 years, however long it's been.
Right.
Kevin Owens has fought Roman Reigns at the Rumble to the last 3 years. So like they've been going at it for a while. Randy Orton is another guy that, like, obviously the Bloodline were the ones that injured him and sent him away for as long as they did and everything else. So I think it's smart to put them together. At the end of the day, you can never really trust either one of those guys. So yes. I would not be shocked if a turn to happen some point in there. We head to a Randy Orton Kevin Owens feud, which I don't think we've ever really seen, which would be really interesting to see those two guys kind of feuding.
Yeah, nothing consistent comes to mind, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think that would be really interesting if Kevin turned heel, if Randy turned heel, whatever the case is. I think this is a must win for Solo and Tama. Like, this is a must win for them. If they're going to be credible threats to the entire WWE roster, right, they need to not only win this, I think they need to, like, convincingly win this in a lot of ways. Not necessarily squashing them, yep, but the end result needs to be very similar to Solo Cena. And then, actually do something off the back of that, not just let it sit for 6 months and then do nothing with it until WrestleMania. So I think this is a really, really big moment for them to swim without Roman Reigns, without the Bloodline as a whole, without The Rock, and just do their own thing, go out there and make a name for themselves, so that when everything kind of comes into place, it feels as big as possible and not kind of lowered to their level, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%, man. Totally agree with you. In order for this chaos to continue, in order for Bloodline 2.0 to continue as dominant as they are, especially if they're adding Jacob Fatu, man, they got to win this one. They got to win this one convincingly. It's two established future Hall of Famers that they are going to defeat. So yes, they absolutely need to. And man, you got to give kudos to Paul Heyman and the role that he is playing in this 2.0 storyline, and the way that he's trying to hold the original Bloodline together so much, but Solo is causing so much chaos over here that he's scared to death. He's trying to bring Solo back in, but man, it's just, Paul Heyman is just playing his role masterfully throughout this whole storyline. Kudos to him, man. I love it so much. He's the thread that makes this thing stay together. And then when Roman comes back, oh man, whose side is Paul Heyman on? Gosh, I can't wait, man. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, it's wild to think that Paul Heyman's kind of been the glue of the entire Bloodline storyline.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for him and Roman getting together, I don't know if we would really be at where we're at with the Bloodline and with everything else. So
yeah,
I think that's really, really important to kind of point out, and to also, like, to give him his props of being the guy that's kind of held everything together for the Bloodline. So it's going to be very interesting when Roman gets back, whenever Rock gets involved again, whenever all of this really just falls apart in front of everybody. It's going to be really interesting to see where everybody's allegiances are, who's going to align themselves with Roman, who's going to align themselves possibly with Rock, and who's just going to completely walk away and be done with it all. Like, I think that's an option for a lot of people as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting when that comes around.
Yeah, it really will, man. And then maybe we get an involvement from Rikishi. Maybe we finally see Afa and Sika. Maybe, maybe we get all that going on. But man, you thought the Bloodline storyline had one ending. It's totally just changing. It's totally evolving. This thing could go on for a long, long, long time. And man, it just keeps getting more interesting the way that they're going about this. So, once again, you are picking the Bloodline to win this tag match.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right, me too. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to another tag match. This one is for the Women's Tag Team Championship, the Kabuki Warriors, who, let's be honest, I forgot was the tag team champions. Asuka and Kairi Sane defending against the powerhouse duo Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Man, I'm not going to knock AEW when I say this, but WWE has done such a masterful job of booking Jade Cargill since she got here. This is no different, man. Like, this is incredible booking right here to make her look as big of a deal as she is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think putting her with Bianca and having them go after the tag titles is very, very important to establish her in front of the main audience. But also, like, you know, like you said, we both said we had no idea who the women's tag champions are. Like those tag titles have been cursed for, honestly, since they came into existence. Yes. They have been cursed from the beginning.
Yep.
So I'm very curious to see what happens. I think there's a scenario where Jade and Bianca win, and it's probably the likely scenario.
Yes.
I think there's a scenario where Jade turns on Bianca in this match, or Bianca turns on Jade, or whatever, and we start to head towards a SummerSlam match between those two. I think that's going to be Bianca. I think that's going to be Jade's first really, really big feud in WWE is going to be Bianca. Like, I think at this point that's kind of been thoroughly established. I'm just wondering when that's going to happen, when they're going to pull the trigger on it. I would be curious to see how they handle Jade as a tag team champion and Bianca as a tag team champion, and like, how long are they actually going to hold that? Because yes, Jade is awesome in this tag team. At some point, though, pretty soon she's going to break free and be her own person.
Absolutely,
and so, do we want her to eat a loss this soon? Do we want to? I mean, how are we going to handle that? I think it's going to be very, very important. But I'm very, very excited for this one to see how she stacks up, and also like 4 fantastic wrestlers are going to be in this match as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens.
Well, we saw on Monday Night Raw tonight, as a result of the draft, that Damage Control is moving to Monday Night Raw. And Jade Cargill, along with Bianca Belair, drafted to SmackDown. So it's do or die at this point. Either the tag team titles are going to Monday Night Raw, or they're going to go SmackDown. If I had to lean towards a prediction, I would say that Jade and Bianca win this one, just so they can get the titles. Like you said, I don't think it's a good idea for Jade to eat a pin this soon. Bianca could eat it and it would be fine. But I think your match between Jade and Bianca, I think that stretches all the way to WrestleMania. I think it's a year-long story of them teaming together at WrestleMania 40, and then the match ends up happening at WrestleMania 41. So I could see them. We saw also drafted to SmackDown tonight Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. So I could easily see Bianca and Jade winning, and their first feud out of the gate being with the former champions. Maybe it's a one match, maybe it's 2 match, whatever. So I can easily see that. I think they win the titles. I think this could be the route of trying to reestablish those titles, break the curse. Let's try to bring some credibility back to them, putting them on 2 huge superstars in Jade and Bianca. I think that's the way that we go with this one. I think they have to win here.
Yeah, and if they win, they need to not only hold those titles for a while, but like defend them pretty often.
Yep.
Because we've had big names win the tag titles before. I mean, Becky and Lita were tag champs at one point, but it still has not felt important. Like them being tag champions felt like a small step in that entire story, and not like the important part to get to.
Right.
So I think Jade and Bianca need to win those titles. If they win those titles, they need to hold on to them for a while and, you know, be dominant. I mean, be absolutely dominant.
Agreed.
Beat everybody, and then whoever takes the titles off of them heads into their match at SummerSlam. I honestly think, or not SummerSlam, WrestleMania. I think honestly we were probably heading to Jade Bianca at SummerSlam. I think the Rhea injury probably has stretched this out a lot, because I really think WrestleMania 41 we were heading to Rhea Bianca for the title. Yeah. But I think with Rhea's injury, probably not now. Probably saving that for 42, or maybe possibly SummerSlam next year. So why not just take your time and establish this? I also would think it'd be very interesting if when we get to that point, if Bianca turned heel on Jade instead of Jade turning heel on Bianca, because we haven't really had heel Bianca on the main roster.
Nope.
So that would be very interesting to see that kind of play out.
Well, and I think, too, it would have been perfect if, you know, they dabbled with the Street Profits being heels for like 2 weeks, even changed their music and then they went away from that because I don't know why. But we got their original music back, and then whatever. But I think you could have, at the same time of having them heels, you could have aligned them with Bianca instead of B-Fab, and that it could have naturally just worked that way. But I don't know. Is what it is, I guess. Bianca being a heel could be very interesting. I don't exactly know how it'll look, but again, that is the beauty of Triple H being the booker and not me, because he knows more than I do. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. What else will be interesting is the final match that has been announced on the Backlash card, and that is for the Women's Championship. Bayley defending in a triple threat match against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. And man, lots of different directions this thing could go. I think the most logical one is Bayley retains, Naomi eats the pin. Tiffany is there just to look good, be in a championship match, but not win, but also not lose. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sums this up perfectly. Is Bayley's going to get a big win. She's going to look good in her retaining the title. I think not the most important, I think it's very, very important to establish Bayley's championship reign here. But I also think it's very important to not make Naomi and Tiffany both look bad in defeat. I think all three ladies need to come out looking as strong as possible, because I think Tiffany Stratton is like the future of the women's division. I think she is absolutely got big things planned for her in the future. But also, like, Naomi is nothing to like look down upon.
Absolutely,
I think she's probably going to be a world champion at some point down the line again. I think she's going to possibly get involved with the Bloodline storyline, even though I'm totally fine if she doesn't. I don't think she necessarily needs to. But I think it'd be very, very interesting to see what kind of comes out of this and where Bayley goes next, especially after the draft and people kind of switching spots and kind of also staying the same. The rosters really haven't changed that much.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a minute. We're getting to that in a minute.
So I'm very curious to see what's next for Bayley.
Yep.
Because I'm really hoping they're not going straight into a singles feud with Tiffany Stratton, because I don't necessarily want her to get into a title feud and then lose immediately. I think we need to build her up even more so to that point.
Well, what
I'm going to do it right away.
Speaking of the draft and some things either moving or not moving, one of the things that did move, Nia Jax moved over to SmackDown, and we saw her get involved in the match this past Friday. We also saw Monday Night Raw tonight, Naomi and Tiffany Stratton get involved in Nia's match. So what's Nia's involvement in this match coming up at Backlash? I'm not saying that we turned it into a fatal four-way, but there's no DQs in a triple threat match, so could easily see Nia Jax get involved in this one. I'm not saying cost Bayley, but insert herself into the title picture in that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of other people like Rhea and Becky and Charlotte, Nia is always going to be in that title contention.
Yes.
And if you need a quick feud, just throw Nia in there and kind of let her go at it.
Yep.
So I think that's probably part of it, and probably just to establish her as the top threat. I don't think she'll necessarily get involved during the match. I think post-match she could come out and beat down on Bayley, and then probably head into a Tiffany Naomi feud, solo Bayley Nia feud heading into probably a Saudi show. They'll probably wrestle at the Saudi show. So I think that would be very interesting to see that kind of play out.
I think you could get a tag match out of there. I don't know if it's a long-term friendship or partnership between Tiffany and Nia, but you could at least get a Tiffany and Nia versus Bayley Naomi one-off or something.
Yeah.
Again, don't know if that's long-term or not, but I think we're both in agreement there. I think that's Bayley coming out on top post-match, and afterwards, still a little bit to question, but Bayley coming out on top, retaining her championship. 5-match card, man. We're recording this during Monday Night Raw, so if something does go down between now and Backlash and we didn't cover it, We're sorry, we couldn't do it. But we will have everything for you on our YouTube channel. We'll recap everything coming up next week as well. We'll be watching the show, probably be live tweeting the show, might even do a live show after the show. Just keep it locked in right here to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you're subscribed. Most of you that are watching our product have not subscribed on the YouTube channel. Please make sure you do that. Doesn't cost you a thing. Helps us a ton. Just hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button on the video. That helps us a lot as well. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see our social media handles are all over the screen. The show's right there at the bottom. And then if you look on mine and Andy's screen, our social media handle is there. For those of you listening, it's at SQCircle_radio. I am at Chris Belcher 24. Andy is at Andy_SQR. Yeah.